We begin a new series this morning called The Heart Matters. And The Heart Matters, we've got the design over there, which Caitlin's done on the whiteboard, which is really, it's a picture of both Māori and Pacifica patterns and designs that have come together in the heart. And a picture of coming together of culture, of walking together, united with this unity and love. Which is really appropriate this weekend, Waitangi weekend, which is about coming together. This weekend is about remembering, it's about forgiveness, it's about reconciliation, it's about celebrating culture and the different expressions and the richness of culture. And I hope you got an opportunity yesterday to go to one of the Waitangi events around Wellington just to be a part of that celebration of culture. And we know that when someone comes from another culture, I know like Susan, her parents always used to have exchange students who'd come from overseas, and when someone comes from another culture, they reveal something of that culture to you. You spend a bit of time with them, and there's there's the language, there's might be the way that people dress, the different kinds of foods that people eat, different values and behaviours. There's a revelation of their culture as you spend time with them. Myself and Susan, we were privileged to be in college as training to be officers at the time where the Salvation Army was introducing the Salvation Army haka. Now, I don't know if you knew that the Salvation Army has a haka, but it's called I'll Fight. You can look it up on YouTube if you haven't seen that. But we were the first two sessions, there's others in the room who were there as well, who got to learn that haka. And we had the Māori Ministries leaders at the time were Joe and Nan Pātia. Incredible couple who came amongst us and spent time, and we just spent time with them and learnt this haka, the language, the different actions, and trying to put it all together for me as this white boy was a challenge, but we got there. And the thing that I love, like Joe has gone to be with the Lord now, but you just spent time with Joe, and it just naturally overflowed from him, the sense of Māori culture. You learnt from him. He revealed the culture as you spent time with him. He was a great man. And so, when we think about revealing culture, I want to talk a little bit about that this morning, this sense of revealing culture, because all of us, we're shaped by the culture we're a part of and reveal that as we go through life. There's in John chapter 3, there's this time where Jesus is with a guy by the name of Nicodemus, and Nicodemus has been he's growing up in this culture of he's a religious leader, and he's a teacher of the law, and this was what he knew, this was what he grew up in, and then it's almost like there's this clash because Jesus comes and Jesus is trying to talk to him about the kingdom, about the culture of the kingdom, and he's just not getting it, to the point where Jesus gets a little frustrated and says to him, how can I even talk this way with you? I'm trying to talk about heavenly things, and you're just not getting it. Yet you're Israel's teacher. And then Jesus says these words in John chapter 3 verse 13, speaking of himself, he says, "There is one who came down from heaven, the Son of Man himself, whose home is in heaven." There is one who came down from heaven, the Son of Man himself, whose home is in heaven. Jesus made the most radical cross-cultural journey of all time. Well, imagine that, leaving heaven, leaving all that is in heaven, then coming to earth, and then trying to, and when Jesus lived on earth, where the goal, we know the ultimate goal that Jesus came for. He came to make a way for whoever would believe in him would experience life, forgiveness, a relationship with the Father, the free gift of eternal life. We know that. That's why he came. But on his journey towards the cross, he lived in such a way that the priority for Jesus was to reveal the culture of where he'd come from. His home was heaven. He'd come from heaven, and he lived his life revealing something of that culture, trying to reveal that, trying to show us the culture of the kingdom of heaven. If you got close to Jesus, you would experience something of that culture. Just like as I got close to Joe Pātia, experience something of culture. For example, in heaven, there is no sickness or disease. Yeah? There's no sickness or disease in heaven. So as Jesus lived his life on earth, people got close to him. It's no surprise that as they got close to Jesus, they were healed of their sickness and disease, because he lived revealing the culture of where he'd come from. He came from heaven. In heaven, there is no Satan. There's no powers of darkness. And so when Jesus comes from heaven, lives on earth, people get close to him. It's no surprise that as they get close to him, he's pushing back the powers of darkness. People have been set free from the enemy because he's revealing the culture of where he came from. He even taught his disciples to pray because, when they came to him and they asked him, the one thing that they asked him to teach them is to, Lord, teach us to pray. And I think that's because he role modeled that really well. He was always, the disciples, you can imagine them, where's Jesus now? Oh, he's gone up the mountain to pray. And another time, where's he? Oh, he's praying again. He's always praying. So they come to him and say, teach us how to pray. And he says, pray this way. Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. The desire of the heart of Jesus, because he wants to answer this prayer, that heaven would become more and more a reality on earth. The Bible says that the moment we come to faith in Jesus, we become citizens of heaven. So even though we live on earth, we're citizens of heaven. And so as a disciple of Jesus, as a follower of Jesus, my life should be about revealing something of the culture of heaven on earth as well. Paul in Colossians, he's talking to new believers, and we're just going to have a look at Colossians chapter 3 this morning. Colossians chapter 3, verse 1 and 2. And Paul is explaining, to the Colossian believers as you've come to faith, you've begun this journey, and he wants to give them a sense of, here's what I want you to focus on. And he says in verse 1, since then you have been raised with Christ. You've begun this new journey. You've been given new life. The old is gone, the new has come. Since you're now a follower of Jesus, believe in him, put your faith in him, here's what I want you to do. Set your hearts. The heart matters. Where we set our heart, what we focus our heart on is important. And here is Paul saying, set your hearts. When you set something, you're intentional. If you set the alarm clock this morning, you're intentional in making sure you had to be intentional about doing something there. When you set the microwave, you're intentional. When we set our hearts, there's a sense when we're not going to drift into this, we've got to be intentional. Set your hearts. What does he say? Set your hearts on things above, where Christ is seated at the right hand of God. Set your minds on things above, not on earthly things. Other translations say, the Passion Translation says, feast on all the treasures of the heavenly realm and fill your thoughts with heavenly realities. NLT, since you have been raised to new life with Christ, set your sights on the realities of heaven, where Christ sits in the place of honor at God's right hand. Think about the things of heaven, not the things of earth. Amplify, set your mind and keep focused habitually on the things above, the heavenly things. Since then you've been raised with Christ. This is NIV again. Set your hearts on things above. Set your minds. So there's a sense of Paul saying, now you're beginning this journey, this faith journey. Here's what I want you to do. Two things. I want you to set your heart on the realities of heaven and set your mind on heaven. Your heart and your mind. Why does he say the heart first? Well, I remember someone saying once, the mind justifies what the heart has chosen. And, so often we choose something in our heart and then we try and, we justify it. We have all these reasons now why we must have this thing, why we must pursue this. So we choose in our heart. So if we set our heart on heaven, pursue heaven in our heart, then the mind will follow. The heart, the seat of our emotions, our desires, our will. And the mind is our thinking, our intellect, our understanding. Now, I wondered, why this great emphasis on heaven? Like as a new Christian, you've begun this journey, you're following Jesus. Why focus so much on heaven? Because, we're still on earth. It's not like, we get saved and then this gap to fill and then we go to heaven. Now, that's not what it's about. But I used to think that maybe it is a little bit about, Paul's saying, keep your eyes on heaven, focus on heaven, and don't worry about earth. Like that's the goal. You're going to end up in heaven, so don't, this place is a mess, all the limitations and restrictions, that's going to be gone soon, and you're going to be in heaven. So just you're going to leave all that behind, so focus on heaven. Live with your head in the clouds. That's not what, I thought that he might be alluding to that, but that's not what Paul's saying. He doesn't want us to live with our head in the clouds. He doesn't want us to, what's the saying? Be so heavenly minded that you're of no earthly use. No, it's not about that at all. So why is the focus on heaven? And here's the key, and don't miss this morning. Don't miss this. Please hear this. This is the heart of it, I think. The more we understand the realities of heaven, the better equipped we are to reveal heaven on earth. The more we understand heaven, it's not so that we just focus on being there. It's about revealing something of the culture of the kingdom of heaven on earth now. Ivan Bazant, some of you may know, he used to say, believers go to heaven, disciples change the world. Or believers go to heaven, disciples reveal a portion of heaven on earth. So it's not just about getting the ticket to heaven, it's about how am I bringing something of this culture, how am I revealing this culture on earth, the culture of the kingdom. And that's a challenge for me because I've never been there. I would say that the best way to reveal, be a revealer of culture is you reveal the one you've grown up in. That's the one you're best going to represent. So how do you reveal the culture of a place that you've never been to? They say that the next best way is an immersion weekend. You go on an immersion weekend. Well, that would be great, wouldn't it? Let's just go on an immersion week, spend a few days in heaven, come back. Then we might know some more. That's a bit tricky. The other way is to stay close to someone from that culture. Stay close to someone from that culture. So like, for example, stay close to Joe Patia. If I wanted to learn the haka, well, I stay close to him. And it just sort of oozes out of him. He reveals the culture. So we stay close. Obviously, that means for you and I, we stay close to Jesus. We stay close to Jesus. He's from that place. He understands that culture. So the best way we can learn more about that culture is by staying close to Jesus. And I have been beating this drum a little bit this year already about, we need to pick up this book. As disciples, as believers, this book in particular, the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, the first 4 books of the New Testament, if we are serious about following Jesus, we will be immersing ourselves in those books. Now, this is Discipleship 101. Read the Gospels. We're followers of Jesus. How do we follow someone if we're not spending any time with them? So spending time with Jesus means to be reading the Gospels. Look at what he's saying. Look at the things he's doing. Because as he's living his life, he's revealing the culture of where he's come from. And if we are to be revealers of that culture, we've got to hang out with Jesus. We've just got to spend time with him. Reading the Gospels. So, I'm preaching to myself this morning. Please understand, I'm telling myself, come on, you've got to read the Gospels more. You're a follower of Jesus. Start immersing yourself in those 4 books. And, that's always been the pattern of reading for me, is to read the Gospels, over and over. I might be reading other parts of the Bible, but I'm always anchored in the life of Christ. Anchored in him, looking at the way he lived and the things he said. So the more we understand the realities of heaven, the better equipped we are to reveal heaven on earth. I want to say this is not a new thing. This is part of the DNA of the Salvation Army. You know, William Booth, the founder of the Salvation Army, he in one of his sermons that I think you can still listen to on YouTube, you can listen to William Booth. He says this. He says, "Heaven on earth is our business." Heaven on earth is our business. The Salvation Army, that's what we're about. We live our lives wanting to reveal something of that realm, the culture of the kingdom of heaven on earth as we live our life, as we go about our week. We reveal heaven on earth. Heaven on earth is our business. That's what we're about. So as we think about staying close to Jesus, that's one thing. But I'd also know that we can, Paul in this chapter, Colossians chapter 3, he does, if you read on, and I would encourage you to do that at some stage, read the rest of Colossians 3, because he gives some insight in how to live a life that will reveal something of the culture of heaven. I want to share one thing about, like if we're thinking, if we're to set our hearts on heaven, set our minds on heaven, one thing about heaven that I know for sure about the culture of heaven is that there is perfect love there. There's unconditional love. God is love. So it's part of that culture is unconditional love. If somehow every one of us in this room could be transported into heaven right now, if we were just sort of right there in your seats, just floated up into heaven, we would find that we would love each other unconditionally. We would all get on. Like, even if we don't get on here on earth, the moment we step into heaven, we're going to get on. We're going to love hanging out together. That's the culture of heaven. We will love each other, and there are no grudges in heaven. There's going to be no offense, no bitterness, none of that stuff. The moment we set foot into heaven, we're just going to love each other unconditionally. All those things will just be insignificant, will drop away. And so we think about that. Well, then our goal is, we're to set our hearts on the things of heaven. So we want to fill our heart with the reality. Well, in heaven, it's about love. So how do I now live a life where that becomes more and more a reality here on earth? Love. And I want to look at one verse as we sort of wind down. Now, Colossians chapter 3:13 is part of this chapter where Paul is talking about it, the life we should live. As we set our hearts and minds on heaven, here's how we should live to reveal that culture. And he's speaking here in the context of love. And in Colossians 3 verse 13 he says this, "Bear with each other and forgive one another. If any of you has a grievance against someone, forgive as the Lord forgave you." Bear with each other. Now that doesn't mean we're going to tolerate, we're going to put up with people. It means to support, to come alongside, to encourage one another, to look out for each other, to walk and move forward together. Bear with each other and forgive one another. Now that's Weekend Waitangi weekend. When we think about the history behind Waitangi 181 years ago, there's a sense of now that this weekend is all about forgiveness. It's all about reconciliation, coming together and beginning to move forward into the future with a greater sense of love and unity. And that's why we specifically, it's interesting how this design came together with the cultures immersed in the heart. Moving forward together in love and unity. Forgive one another. Forgive one another. There is no unforgiveness in heaven. So how do we best reveal the culture of heaven on earth? Well, we forgive. We forgive. Forgiveness is not just good for the relationship, it's good for health and well-being. Did you know that? The medical experts, they say that studies have found that the act of forgiveness can reap huge rewards for your health. Lowering the risk of heart attack, improving cholesterol levels and sleep, reducing pain, blood pressure and levels of anxiety, depression and stress. And research points to an increase in the forgiveness health connection as you age. So as we get older, it's like the more important it is to forgive. Forgive one another, Paul says. You want to live showing the realities of the culture of heaven on earth? Well, start showing forgiveness. Forgiveness is not just about saying the words. This is a quote from Dr. Karen Swartz. She says, "It is an active process in which you make a conscious decision to let go of negative feelings, whether the person deserves it or not." So a big part of loving one another is forgiveness. Now, I've had this sort of thought on my heart about forgiveness since really the beginning of this year. It's been something that I've been sitting with and feeling that I need to share this. I didn't know when or how, but I thought, well, let's kick off this Heart Matters series by talking about this small word called forgive. And why did I feel strongly? Because I felt that, like I'm sensing that and know that 2020 was a year where things have been said, things have been done and possibly for you as you're sitting in this room, someone might have said something or done something that has upset you, that has hurt you, that was disappointing, was discouraging. And, I think as we launch into 2021, let's not bring that stuff with us. Let's sort out. We don't want to come into 2021 hurt and upset and still carrying the pain of whatever that person said or did. So let's begin this new series where the heart matters by forgiving. Forgiving. So I wonder if you'd, just for a moment, just would like to bow your heads and close your eyes. And how I want to finish this morning is this way. In a moment, I've got a prayer that I'm going to put on the screen, which is a prayer about forgiving another person, and it's got a slot where you can put someone's name in there. And just to give you an idea, in a moment when I give you opportunity to pray to forgive a person in your life that maybe needs to be forgiven, that you can use that prayer, or you can pray a prayer of your own, but just quietly to yourself in a few moments. I'm going to give opportunity to forgive, to reveal the culture of heaven on earth by showing forgiveness, because I think it will set us free to move forward and have the best year. I want 2021 to be a great year. I'm believing for a great year, and I don't want anything to hold us back or restrict us or limit us from moving into all that God has for us. And one of the things that can do that is unforgiveness. It can harden our heart. So I'm going to pray. Father, as we sit before you this morning and think about this thing called forgiveness, and maybe reflect on last year, maybe someone said something or did something that has left us wounded, hurt, disappointed, discouraged. Lord, I pray right now that you would, even now, just show us who that person might be. Maybe it's more than one person. That we might give them to you today, that we might be able to engage in the process of forgiveness so that we might be free. Lord, we want this to be a great year. So right now, right around the room, I pray you'd reveal. If we don't know already, show us who we need to forgive this morning. also sensing maybe there's someone that you feel you need to go to and just sort things out, maybe say sorry, maybe try and reconcile things. And that doesn't have to be for this morning, but it might be something that you do as we leave this place. Someone you go to and say you want the relationship to be better. You want the relationship to be healed. So Father, this is your time. So just as Yvonne continues to play, have a look at this prayer on the screen, and in your own time, just quietly to yourself, you can pray this prayer, and there's a space there to put the name in, or you can, if you can craft your own prayer, you can do that, but this is just a guideline if you want to use this, and give you a couple of minutes to do that, and then we're going to sing again. So just take a few moments to do that now.